Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
We're back.
Ruben Bressler.
Hi, what's up?
Hey, well, we took a week off. There was some things and stuff we had to go through. If you want more info on that, there's a pre-show for that stuff.
Sure.
And we also get started with a trumpet blast. We were going to have one, but we're going to talk about that topic. And so they were the person who wanted to make sure we absolutely covered the topic. We're going to be covering that topic later. It's about the topic du jour. If you're listening live tonight on,
I didn't even know about this until now, and I'm a part of the show. Wow.
Oh, it was a hot mess. You know, like I said, you just wake up in the morning, you're like, I wonder what weird crap's just going to take over Twitter today, and here it comes.
Boy, I hope that we have something to talk about on the show this week.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, universe. We did it.
Well, look, we give away free stuff here. ! Raffle gets you in the drawing for a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. But if you are a subscriber, which you totally should be, spend those Bezos bucks, you get 2 chances, dub chances, twice as much for not quite for free, but free, sort of, but with sub first, and then they're free. That's how that works. All right, so the first pick was we got lots of things to talk about this week, is the World Championship. The World Championships with this past weekend, Wizards has gone, I mean, I've never, let's put it this way, I've never seen Wizards go as far in their marketing and star building efforts as they have done with the World Championships. And quite frankly, I thought they did a terrific job at it.
Yeah, I was really, really impressed with the rollout leading up to it. You know, you had the tie-ins with Magic Arena where you can use the little avatars and literally be the competitors. You can be Andre Strasky, you can be Autumn Burchett. The videos where they interviewed them and they had the neon lights with their name, I was really, really impressed with those, giving each of them a chance to shine. It seems like this event was really well received. I was keeping up with it based on the hashtag, and I was even in the chat for a little while. And the only real criticism I saw come out of this weekend had to do with the brackets. Like there was some confusion over how the pairings were set up and how the tournament itself was set up, but coverage seemed to be a really big hit. The matches themselves were very entertaining. People really liked the decks. They really liked the competitors. This event was a really big win.
Right. I mean, from the marketing side of it, I do want to point out those short videos. They were a minute long each, and there was like short interviews and stuff. And at the end, they all said, "I'm going to be the world champion" in their own language, which I also thought was great. And that thing you noted in Arena, again, that is huge. The Wizards has never star built. They haven't star built like this since they put people in packs. Since they actually had Brian Kibler tokens in Magic the Gathering packs.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Well, I mean, the fact that you could be that person, have that person as your avatar, play their exact deck. Like this is a special event during this one time. That was freaking insane. Wizards really went all out, and I'm just telling you, that was terrific. I wish they gave half as much a crap about the Players Tour stuff as they did about.
That's what I was going to say. If I had to think of anything to work on, I would say that it was really sad that the other events had to be sacrificed for that. Like if this could just sort of be the standard, that would be really nice. But it's obvious that a lot of their resources went to this, and still nobody's really talking about the Players Tours.
I love it when a plan comes together, though, and it seems like this event, they put it all together. There were no complaints really from the players. I mean, there were effectively no complaints from anywhere. Some people had a little bit of trouble following the brackets, but the players were quick to point out that they were not the ones who were complaining about the bracket
they were like, don't
format.
Feel bad for us.
Yeah. So they were happy. I think that it was a little bit confusing that some people were playing like 14 matches and some people were playing like 8, but it made sense based on the buy structure of who got buys for what. So it all added up, even if it was confusing to some. The star building, of course, was really well done and really well rolled out, and was multiple angles. Like I heard of this event from 3 or 4 different sources that I don't normally hear about this type of event from, which as someone who's as plugged into Magic as we are, that's noticeable. And I thought that the response to the event was really good. And The live viewership was great. The coverage afterwards.
They did the coverage outside. Did you see that? That was
that's
outdoors.
what I've been waiting to note is that how in the world did they have that much wind and that much clear voice coming through?
And Maria kept it together.
They did it good. They
Yeah.
did well. I mean, that's what happens when you put, I mean, if you're going to host an event in Hawaii, host an event in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, they did it.
You do Destination Pro Tour, show the people what Hawaii looks like.
Yeah.
But you know, they do that for football games. You know, they go to middle of Minnesota in the middle of the winter, so you can do it in the summer in Hawaii, or in the winter in Hawaii. But
having us live through so many years of SCG Live and trying to set up so there wouldn't be glare or the thing's crooked or the mic's on the backwards.
Just really well done.
I was like, holy cow, how did they do that with all of those limitations? Do note there were some mistakes at the beginning. Andrea Mengucci's deck had been misregistered, and instead of 2 of the Archon rare, the one that when you play an enchantment you make a 2/2
Sun's Grace,
yeah, Sun's Grace, it was the uncommon Archon that brings back an enchantment. So that led to some sort of misanalysis, as it were, if that's a word, bad analysis, because they were like, his deck is the number 1 best deck in the pool.
Right.
And how did that happen?
I want to back up a second and note that the draft coverage was stellar. Like the idea that you gave them at least one day. I'm thinking at least one day. It might have been 2, but at least one day to fully do a draft, know what everyone is taking, have a graphic where you can show everyone in whose colors and why it's important so and so gets past to such and such. Yep. That was brilliant. Like that was really cool.
We were really not on board. Remember, if you recall, about that idea 2 weeks ago.
And so go ahead.
I'll eat crow on that. That worked out really well. The other thing that Willie Edel recently tweeted was Paulo, who ended up winning, of course. Congratulations to Paulo Vitor Damo de Rosa, your current world champion. And
that's right.
Perhaps back into the argument of who's the GOAT of all time. But Willie Edel tweeted that coverage of Paulo winning was on television in Brazil. He was riding on a bus, and Paulo's face was on the TV, which is really, really cool. And I can't really imagine happening in the United States.
No, and his family was waiting for him at the airport too. They gave him a huge celebrity greeting with signs and everything.
Yeah, it was super awesome. And the idea that now it's still, I think, a little bit silly to draft the paper cards and then play on Arena.
It is.
But at the same time, I do, and I will happily admit, I think it worked a lot better than I expected. And I think they tried to take as much advantage of it as they could. I think there's plenty of opportunities for them to work harder on showing deck lists on the screen and things like that they were not doing during those segments. But again, if this is your floor, there's a lot of room to grow, and I thought they did a really good job with that. So in a perfect world, yes, we would all draft an Arena in 8-man queues, and I'm sure we'll have that eventually.
Yeah, I think they'll implement it.
I think they said it was coming by the end of the year.
Yeah. Right. And they showed a mock-up of what it looks like and stuff.
Yeah.
So
now,
they're actively
did any of you pick Paulo for your trophy on Arena?
You say that as if I use Arena.
Aaron, please.
I picked Canister, so he got ninth.
If I had to pick anybody, though, I was very vocal about the fact that I did and I still do. I was a big Chris Kavartek fan. I loved his video. I was very vocal about that on Twitter. I was really pulling for him this weekend, and I still think he's got a career ahead of him.
And I picked Javier because I'm apparently stupid for not picking Paulo.
I was this close from picking Mengucci, and so between Dominguez and Mengucci, they both got knocked out immediately, which sucks. They only got $35,000 or whatever.
Darn.
And a trip to Hawaii.
Darn,
right?
Yeah, that's the other thing is that Paulo made 40% of his lifetime earnings in this one tournament.
Yeah,
or something ridiculous like insane. That.
I
absurd.
Obviously nothing but happy for him. I hope he buys a really nice house down in Brazil. I'm sure it's going to get him real far, which is great. He's newly married, so he kind of has a whole sort of family set up, ready to go. That is terrific.
I just want to be friends with his mom. Every time I see his mom, she just looks like she's so much fun to kick it with.
And Paula's good people, man. I've been talking about following, making videos, chitter-chatting about his decks, about his play, meeting him on the Pro Tour, talking to him for years and years and years. Paulo is a terrific person, and I think Marcio had such baggage, however you want to call that.
There was an attempt at a comeback tour. Corbin, I think, wrote an article about him leading up to this that was meant to kind of address his history and address his mistakes. And he still made it really hard to root for him. I was watching his finals match versus Seth Manfield, and there were a couple games where like he was very clearly beating Seth, and he was doing the early good game, not once, but like, and it was like, oh no. And chat was already stacked against him, and they just latched onto that. And they were like, Márcio, no, like you're supposed to be like doing damage control here. Like we want to root for you, dude. And then the greedy keep at the end just really kind of sealed the deal for people of just like, we can't ride with you, dude.
Now, for the narrative of the event was really terrific. It led up to the point where Paulo had to win 2 matches. It was best of 5 matches. But the way it worked is that Paulo had the advantage of only needing to win 2, and Márcio had to win 3. And so immediately PV goes up a match, and it's just like, okay. And then immediately I think he wins game 1 of the next match. And then Márcio comes back to win 2 matches in a row, bring it all the way back to like, I think it was game 3. Like we're talking, big stakes. This is a $150,000 game of Magic. And
you couldn't have asked. Sorry.
I was this hand of like 2 islands, 2 red cards, 2 blue cards, or 2 white cards. It was like it was awful. It was just, and for me it was just a tilt keep. And I'm not gonna say he's like the worst player ever. I just think it was a tilt keep. Your mind saying something. This man has done nothing but play Magic all day on an unbelievable scale with an unbelievable stress on him. All the thousands and thousands of people watching him. I think he just made a mistake.
Yeah,
sure. And you do that at the end of 50 hours of playing Magic in a row on the highest stakes with, the highest stage. You couldn't have asked for a better storyline from the weekend. I mean, you go into the finals and you want to have an epic finals conclusion, and you have one of, if not the greatest player of all time, up against what a lot of people perceive to be as a villain. Who was attempting to make a comeback, but had the Seth issue earlier, and a lot of people he's got a lot of baggage. And Paulo goes up a game, and you're like, yeah, we did it, or goes up a match, and then Márcio comes all the way back, and you get that epic conclusion of Paulo taking it down at the end. It's like it was written as a Disney movie where the underdog hero champions had to come all the way back during the finals. It was really just a great event. And
then Paulo seals it with the speech, saying that he wanted this ever since he was a child, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. I mean, everybody was pulling for him.
Yeah, it was absolutely terrific, and Paulo is fantastic. And we're going to move on here. More topics, more things to talk about. Gather the Townsfolk begins here with the Secret Lair. Secret Lair is Wizards' ability to sell singles directly to market, and it's been very successful. There's no way that there's a Hasbro earnings call that says they're expected to double their revenue over the next 5 years without something like this. And there's something turned out to be Theros Stargazing. Theros Stargazing was a set of 5 different foil collections of original Theros gods. So you got a package of 3 different gods in in the 5 different ways, centered around the 5 different colors, of course. And these were the OGs one. These were the OGs where like Perforos is like a $30-$40 foil, and so on. So like some really big money, quote unquote, if you think of these as part of their foil pricing. But at the same time, recently Secret Lair cards have been seen closer to their non-foil pricing because sort of the OG foils seem to be like the thing that people want in terms of like bling and showing off and whatever. We're not really sure yet. Secret Lair is very young, as it were, but at the same time Wizards has just like dipped and dipped and dipped and then dipped times 5 to try to get another $150 out of you this past weekend to get all of these packages of shiny cardboard. So the margins on these things are obscene, and it's one of the reasons that Hasbro Gaming did so well is because I think, between Arena and things like Secret Lair, Wizards have been killing it. And I think this was the one where people finally were like, okay, I can't.
So I actually love the Theros gods, and I love the constellations. In fact, one of my Valentine's gifts was the collective art print of all of the constellations together. And so I'm the target market for this. And I don't know how this has worked in the past, but $40 for 3 cards? Is that, do you normally get 3 cards?
So, I mean, it depends. I guess it depends on the secondary market, right? Like,
how many did you get with the rat? With the rat,
you got 5 rats. 5 rat colonies, I should say, plus a pack rat, plus
the
a Maronar plus a
Ink
Ink
Eyes.
Eyes.
Yes.
So that's
So you have
9.
4 cards? Well, I mean 4 cards though, not counting the multiples. Like
Right. 4
Okay,
cards.
so that seems. And then how much was the other ones?
I think goblins, you had 6 goblins.
Okay.
But Bitter Blossom, you had a Bitter Blossom and 4 tokens.
Right.
Okay, then I guess that's not
So
so
like,
unusual.
I mean, it's
I mean, we're talking about Magic cards here, people. We have cards that are worth tens of thousands of dollars. Like,
Sure.
you know,
right.
like,
So the first one, which is Heliod, Karametra, and Iroas, is obviously the dud of the bunch. But you get Thassa Ifara Krufix, which is fine.
Right.
You get Erebos Phoenix Athreos, which is fine. You get Perforos Mogus Keranos. That's the winner of the bunch. That one's insane. And then there's Nylea Xenagos Farika, which is still pretty good.
Oh, that Farika is amazing. And Jason Engel has been really capitalizing on this. Go follow him on Twitter. He's been, detailing his process. He's been coming up with, prints and combination of prints and graphics and really trying to give you as much of this as he can. And rightfully so. These are beautiful.
Right. And so here's the issue, right? So basically there was a sort of an understanding at Wizards of the Coast that they would never do something that could be seen as sort of competing or going against stores in some way. Stores were on high and they were to be supported and to have this OP program and things were able to give them. You give them these gifts and things over the years, and they still give gifts in various ways, whether it's things like the spell book, and they're going to have that Commander product later and the Commander foil thing for the WPM premium stores. But think of it as you're a Magic player, and you no matter how much means you have, there's an end to your means, and there's an end to the amount of money that you want to spend on Magic. And if you were to take your $150 and you don't buy the singles that you wanted at the game store, and instead you bought the secret layer, because some of those packages, if you looked at the foil values, you were getting like $150 worth of cards for a $40 buy-in. And so when that money doesn't go to stores any longer, someone like Jeremy at Missouri MTG says Secret Lair sucks and is driving many shops out of business. Wizards is selling directly to the secondary market to appease stockholders, and we have now turned into Yu-Gi-Oh! 10s. Support your LGS. Yu-Gi-Oh! 10s are where they would take very expensive cards and reprint them, and sometimes in a sort of almost to really just crash their value. Like Yu-Gi-Oh! Does a lot of weird stuff. I mean, but ultimately, it's the company making a product to sell directly to you for a very, very high markup.
Ultimately, to me, though, the secret layers aren't going to be enough of a volume to really affect the secondary market.
I don't know if that's true yet.
I don't think it's the volume. I think it's just the overall messaging that, these are products that could be going to stores, that could be beefing up, their bottom lines, could be supporting them, could be keeping their lights on. And Wizards is choosing to keep that for themselves. And when you combine this with other messaging, like we saw with Worlds, you had that Crucible of Worlds that was supposed to only be for the viewing parties. And then you can now go on the Pro Shop website and find it. I don't think by itself the secret layer is enough to demonstrate that, but when you put the pieces together, there is this sort of counter narrative of, well, you say you're here for stores, but yet everything you're doing seems to say that you're not.
I will add though that the messaging of we're putting the LGSs first was a message that was from the previous administration, the previous CEO, the previous people that worked there. That hasn't been true or repeated. Like, it's not like the current CEO is saying that and not doing it. That was a message from the previous head coach, and now it's a different story.
Here's something that I didn't actually notice until someone mentioned it in the chat here. Pay close attention here. Every single secret layer product so far, at least best I can tell, does not have a standard legal card in it. Is that correct? If you think about Bitter Blossom, if you think about the Kaleidoscope Killer stuff and Explosion Sounds, none of those cards, best I can figure, were actually in standard. Serum Vision certainly wasn't, and most of the kitty cats had already rotated. So, again, what I'm sort of noting is they're not competing yet against stores for standard singles. These are older singles that have higher reprint value.
Okay.
So all reprints out of
Snow-Covered
rotation,
Lands. Restless in Peace was all dredge stuff. God knows they're never putting that back in standard.
Scared me for a second. I heard Rest in Peace, and it seemed the worst.
Explosion sounds is goblins, kaleidoscope killers. Yeah, it doesn't look like. Well, let's look at OMG kitties. What do we got? We got a couple. So we've got Regal Caracal is the most recent. Oh,
Yeah.
is Leyan and War Leader in standard?
No.
All right, then I think we're safe.
Right, and I think all that stuff is rotated. So again, that's something to note, is that they're not sort of fighting on that battlefield. They're sort of fighting on sort of the modern-esque, or in certainly the commander players of the world. And
Only the most popular formats right now.
who knew, right? And Pioneer, right? So this is just one of those things that, you know, Wizards is cultivating this thing where they can just kind of like hit this lever and just millions of dollars pops out. And they've kept hitting it, and the dollars kept coming. And when you do that, and you go to upper management, and you say, maybe we should put the brakes on this thing, and they're going like, what? Excuse me?
Right.
Every time you've pulled that lever, either the money has been the same or better. We should keep pulling the lever until it stops.
This is
until the money
Well,
stops.
hasn't there also been some backlash recently over the sleeves, that you can now get the sleeves on Arena, that just anybody can get them?
Now they do sell the original Secret Lair sleeves, like the really cool Serum Visions and stuff, and the Explosion Sounds one. You can go buy those on Arena. It was, as I understand it, it wasn't the FAQ. I want to give total, note here that I believe it wasn't the FAQ. That doesn't mean I read it or that I didn't feel like I was getting that exclusively, because I felt that I was, and I thought that was one of the cool sort of flexes you could have on Arena. You're like, oh hey, I got this thing, right? Because I went the extra mile and got the Secret Lair for it, but that's not true. And I mean, it is what it is. It's not the end of the world. It's
Reading the FAQ explains the FAQ.
That's right. It was hidden in the FAQ, Pharmacist Judge says. Well, I agree, because I did not see that one coming. But anyway, we got to keep moving. The Secret Lair thing is still very, very concerning. And one of the things in the most recent survey Wizards said was, how often do you think we should do a Secret Lair product? Personally, I voted every 6 months. I think you could make them very special and make them
6 months
really
is good.
bi-yearly events that do some really cool stuff. But my God, all of a sudden you come out with 5 that are available for 2 days over this one weekend, and man, they got to keep hitting that lever. And I'm afraid of how many times
I was
they're gonna
surprised,
do
because
it.
I was just trying to catch up on the topics. I remember coming home, I think it was Thursday or Friday, and the website, I'd never purchased this before. And so I clicked on the link that somebody put in the Discord, and I didn't know that there were timers.
Yeah.
So it sends me to the website, and it was like, you got 10 minutes. And I'm like, what? I'm just looking. I was like, I don't know what this is like.
Well, when it wasn't like that, it was eBay crashing. We crashed eBay. So
And then there was a little icon of a man on the bottom that looked like he was running. And then when it runs to the end, it lets me in the site. It was wild.
Oh, that's right. So they
queuing
put the
software.
stained glass planeswalkers in some of the Secret Lairs.
Yeah.
yes.
So those were in standard.
And that's a fair point. And that was a surprise. That was not,
Yes,
as
that was a
understand-
surprise, and it was
But-
not advertised.
But it was still, well, as I understand it, I'm trying to think of the timeline. It was still included during a period, or it was still unveiled during a period in which you could buy it. So again, that is tipping the scales, and it's just more and more of a direct singles sale. And I'm telling you, that is so stupidly lucrative. I mean, it's crazy. They get to make the magical cards. Don't eat the magical cards, but they get to make the magical cards that are worth lots and lots of money whenever they want to. And frankly, the executives of the company are paying attention to that, for good and for bad. Speaking of good, the Challenger decks for 2020 are here, and they did not 2 Jade Light Ranger us this time, guys. They fixed it.
You get 4 whole fires of invention.
Yes, you do. You get 4 Runaway Steamkin. You
Wow.
get, which I thought was really, you get 4 Torbrand. You get a Brazen Borrower. You get a Fabled Passage in multiple. You get a Shockland in one of these things. You get an Embercleave. This is good money cards. They have 4 new decks coming out. They have Allied Fires. Now, they don't give you any of the
Cavaliers.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But you don't need to buy the Cavaliers. Otherwise, it's fantastic. And there's 4 fires in there. There is a Kenrith, the Return King. I thought that was huge.
Nice.
And multiple
That is
temples.
huge.
There's 3 temples
3
in that
Deafening
thing.
Clarions,
Yeah.
Draw from Dreams, 3 Sarkins, an Ugin, 3 Casmina, 4 Narset. This is nice.
Yeah. And so 4 Lovestruck Beast in the adventure deck is big game, and they do give you 2 Murderous Rider, and I don't think that's unfair. I think that's a fine amount, because again, the Explore deck that they sold us last year was supposed to have all the Explore things that was happening.
So bad.
And Jade Light Ranger was one of the key cards. Murderous Rider is nice, is good, doesn't even always see a 4 of play. Okay, fine. But Lovestruck Beast, if there had only been 2 in this deck, I'd have been ranting and raving right now. Just think of it this way. Last year, there was only one deck that if you added up its retail cost was worth more than $75. All 4 of these are worth over $100 in cards that are in these. They came back and they said
peasy.
They needed to push it more and juice it more, and they did.
Well, they're making all that money off secret layers, so they can.
They include Embercleaves now, and it's fine.
Right.
Because who cares?
You get one Embercleave as a treat.
But 4 light at the stage is 4 Bone Crusher Giant. Like,
sure.
That's a big game. Mm-hmm. So these things are awesome.
3 experimental frenzies. Woof.
Yeah, pre-selling right now at
coolstuffinc.com.
Yeah, get that order in.
Subtle.
Hey.
Hashtag sponsored.
That's right. Hashtag sponsored. Hashtag that's my job. All right. Up to this next announcement. Goodness gracious. I don't know what to believe. Hasbro confirms that there has been, quote, a decline in MTGO business. The CEO referred to it as a legacy product/business. And then they said that MTG Arena will move to mobile in 2020.
That seems ambitious.
I'm feeling pretty pie Betty that there's no way in the world it is getting on mobile by the end of this year. Maybe an alpha kind of build sorta on certain Android phones if you're friends with Wizards employees. Okay. Right. But there's no way.
Not open release of
1.0 mobile, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you ain't even on Mac yet. You ain't even exported file export to Mac like you can do on software that's built on Unity. And they don't really. And you see these insane board states that have 700 tokens. What is going to happen on your phone?
I'll be damned if I get it on my iPhone before I get it on my iMac. Like, let's figure out the software first.
Yeah.
It's weird. I'm just saying. The idea that, and again, if mobile equals tablet, I mean, honestly, for those with like Windows tablets and use like touch controls, most of Arena works just fine that way.
Yeah.
Sure.
So maybe that's the best they can do is put it on your iPad.
I was pleased to see something else that came up on the earnings call. They said that Magic's revenues grew 30% in 2019, double-digit growth in tabletop. So that's good to see. I think that I'm one of those people that was really concerned that Arena would kind of take away the gathering, that, people would stop going to events and everybody would just be, tethered to their computers and playing Arena. But it does seem like people are still getting out there and playing paper Magic, and that makes me really happy.
I'm curious what Evan, that means, because Secret Lair could be included in that paper Magic that is doing so well.
So Evan, we've got not one but 2 people who are taking you up on your pie bet in the chat.
Goodness gracious.
Now, Celtic Daemon and Pharmacist Judge have both said that they will take you up on the pie bet.
So they think it's going to happen in 2020.
They think it'll happen by 2020.
Wow.
Evan said that he doesn't think so. So here is what I propose. Should it appear on iPhones or whatever, on mobile in 2020, Evan will take a pie at the end of a show.
Sure.
A live show.
Yep. We'll figure out the logistics somehow to throw a pie in my face. There is, guys.
And
look,
the other 2 of you
listen to me.
Need to record it.
Wizards,
send it to us, and we'll tweet it out from the official Twitter.
Listen, Wizards was going to make a life counter, okay, called Portal. They put that crap on the side of a box. They put it in an insert for the actual booster box itself, and then they scrapped the whole project. And we're kind of sort of getting some tournament software, maybe sort of later this year.
Nif Biscuit will take another bet. So this is going to be official rollout. This is the clarification. Public. Not alpha, no beta.
Right, no beta garbage.
No gamma delta. No. Official release.
On an iOS, literal, my phone. It has to play on my phone. That's the bet. This is the mobile. Mobile is not my iPad. You don't sit around and put an iPad in your pocket. This is mobile.
Tweet us after the show at Magic Mike's Cast. If you're accepting the bet, we're all taking even bets, and Evan will do it live on the show.
And I would expect the same respect and courtesy when December 31st rolls around to see videos of all of y'all getting splattered with reality.
I like it. Wow.
I love Wizards of the Coast. I think they're great, and there's some awesome people there, but holy cow, that is too big of an ask in my opinion. I know they've been hiring companies to help them hire in development companies and video game development companies, and I'm sure they're peeing their pants right now trying to figure out how to do this. All right, let's move on here. There was a short update to the banned and restricted announcement thing. They said today won't feature any changes. For future updates, expect a notice for when the BNR announcement is coming to plan accordingly. Now, that also meant that people were like, now you're doing an announcement of an announcement. Like, yeah, dude. Okay. First of all, do you really want just a BNR announcement to just like pop up out of nowhere and suddenly everything's different? Would you rather not know it's coming? And would you rather not have a world in which the community can talk about it and make content about it and speculate and have articles with different reasonings in it? That's, to me, that stuff is like, that's the spice of Magic, is where we get to hear some really great minds make some points and say, hey, there's going to be a BNR update, and I think this is what's going to be on it. I think this is what's going to be unbanned, and all that stuff seems to make sense to me. I think that's great. But again, also note, full disclosure, I help run CoolStuffInc.com. We make content and post content every day. It's a good thing for us as a business for them to draw that out. As a player, sure, tell me immediately on Monday morning what's happening. But as a business, as someone who likes to really just promote Magic and Magic content, it's better to just say, hey, it's coming, and let's talk about it. Like, I think that's better, honestly, for everybody, whether you're a streamer or a writer or whatever, or a Magic news person. I think that's a good thing for everybody, honestly.
Yeah.
But all right,
that's what it says on my business card. Magic news person.
You gotta have the ellipses. You gotta have the pause of Magic news person.
So as of 2 days ago, one Mr. Samuel Black had begun to start his time at Wizards of the Coast at 1600 Lind Avenue, which is exactly where the home of Wizards of the Coast is. He is now in the building working on Magic products in some form or fashion, and I think that's great.
Make aristocrats great again, Sam.
I mean, I want to see some Sam Blackie type designs and play design come out. That would be great.
Sam Black, I like to say that Sam Black speaks in binary, because whenever I talk to him, I just feel so stupid, because he's just so intelligent and he thinks of things in such a different way. And every time I talk to him, I was just like, hey Sam, and he'll be like 01110001, and I'm just like, I can't keep up.
He's a super smart dude. I always love talking to Sam at Pro Tours, because he would often you get to the point where once I ask all the pros the same 7 questions or whatever, like I kind of expect, okay, here we go about Infect or whatever it was at the time. But Sam would usually surprise me with something just kind of out of left field, and I'll go, whoa, I was not expecting you to talk about that thing that way. And it's great because also Sam has been very much a critic of how Wizards has handled whether it's organizing, organized play, the event setup, and how they reward players and paying the pros and all this other stuff. Like, he's been at the forefront of those types of things, so it's great to see them working with someone who has also heavily criticized the company.
So one of my favorite memories of Sam was at when Team StarCityGames.com was at Pro Tour Theros in Ireland, and we were at a castle. And we recorded a bunch of interviews, and I'm not sure this interview ever actually went anywhere, but Jeremy Knoll, myself, and whoever we were interviewing at the time were sitting on this little couch in this little front room of this adorable little castle. And one of the questions I asked to all of these people, who, of course, by the way, are some of the smartest people that you will ever meet in your entire life. And I said, why Magic? Why have you devoted your life to Magic specifically? Like, a lot of you are hedge fund managers. You run companies. You could be doing anything. Why Magic? And Sam gave one of the most cogent, impactful answers, and one that I still remember, which was, all of these people are solving the hardest puzzle in the world, the hardest, most difficult program to figure out together, separately, but together, and trying to make a machine that works in the best way, and challenging yourself against the smartest people and challenging yourself against the most difficult problem is fascinating and worthy of exploration. So while they're not, curing cancer and they're not solving world hunger, this is also worth pursuing, being the best at the best thing, which I thought was an interesting. And he also was quick to add, I won't do this forever. This is not the end all be all, but it is an intellectual pursuit worth going after. And I thought it was a really interesting answer.
You got way too deep there. I got to lighten it up a little bit. So my favorite Sam Black memory is when I first started doing the deck teas. I think like a lot of people, you see personalities at the top and they seem very intimidating to you. And I always imagine like what my first interaction with Sam would be. And I remember tweeting something. I tweeted an OkCupid profile question that I thought was ridiculous. And somehow it turned into a Twitter debate and then got over to Sam. And Sam tweeted at me at like 11 o'clock on a Tuesday with like his thoughts. And I was like, this is not how I thought our first interaction would go, Sam Black. And so I was mortified. I was like, oh God, he's just so, and he's friends with me on Facebook and I feel so bad about it because he's Sam Black and he has these intelligent thoughts and I'm sharing Britney Spears memes and I'm like, you deserve so much better than me, Sam. I am so sorry.
Jeez. Well, 2019 called and they want their art book back.
Oh.
Because War of the Spark, the art book, is coming in fall 2020.
Okay.
Great.
I mean, it was a great set and it had some amazing artwork and I really enjoyed it. It's a little weird to show up a year later.
Yeah, why
a year and a half
what's
later.
happening?
All right. I mean,
I don't get it.
sure. Well, I thought Throne was pretty. There's nothing not pretty about, Theros. What's up with those art books, y'all? Like, that's weird. Okay.
Is this
That's just one of those.
Wizards
I
the
don't know
Coast
really what to
product?
say us about this. It's just a
Now
thing.
this is coming from Viz, which did the other art books. Are they directly related to Wizards, or is this on their own darn time?
As far as I know, this is a third-party project, as it were.
Okay, so maybe it's
Some
not
amount of
Wizards to
licensing
blame.
or something involved. You never know. It's just really kind of odd. So one of the things that Wizards has in development, speaking of mobile apps, is a mobile app. There is going to be new tournament software available that you can use, and it will send you push notifications as you are used to getting them on your phone to say that, round 3 is ready to begin. You play so-and-so at table such and such. And the ability for you to not only be able to, get your pairings that way, you can also report your matches remotely and submit those, which is really sweet. And then you can, of course, look up all the stats, where your standings are and stuff right there in the app. And this stuff is being beta tested and is going to be rolled out, as I understand it, over the summer. Okay. But we've basically got the tournament software that we've been dreaming of since 2008 or something.
Right. And by dreaming of, what you mean is announced and said was coming
Yes.
a half dozen times since 2008. So I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, there is a link. I'll put it here in the chat. So, that's the wrong link. I'll go ahead and put it here in the chat, which is for the WPN site, where they talk about the first look at the new tournament software. This software is real. This is actually happening. The Cool Stuff Games is going to help, as I understand it, beta test a little bit of this stuff in our stores.
Nice.
So that's really cool. And again, this is one of those where you don't need to have a phone or whatever. You can still walk up and report your match or whatever. But if you have a device and you can report it right there and you can look at the standings right there and it give you a push notification, that's pretty awesome. As I understand it, this is going to use your wizards.com account. This is also be known as your arena account. And that if you don't have one, they'll sign you up for one. And this to me says, wait a minute, wasn't there a DCI involved?
I was just going to say.
That's a thing, right? Like, and if
what's happening with banned people?
I don't know.
Again?
There is another thread that came out saying that, we're getting to the point where, because the list of people who are suspended is now either secret or was destroyed, it's difficult to know if someone is suspended. And you do have a local database in your DCI reporter, but if Andrew suddenly goes by Andy, they're going to slip right past and you're going to have no idea.
Right. If Bert Alex Cheney shows up to a tournament next week.
Right. Like that's a thing that could happen. And whether they know it, they report it, whether you just changed your look or you went to some other store or some other community that had no idea who you were. There's like, this is the slope that we're all essentially afraid of when it comes to Wizards saying, you know what, judge program, we're stepping back. We don't want anything to do with the judges. The judges have brought us nothing but heartache and lawsuits and problems with tax evasion stuff about the promos and how they use them to pay the judges. And why don't we just not do that? And you're not necessarily required to get a judge for your events anymore. And the level 0 rules advisor is good enough. And it's rough out there because they are running away from a program that kept the integrity And you know, I mean, no, none of the events were perfect, and yes, cheaters still existed, but a system where the Wizards of the Coast officially recognizes and it helps sort of, you know, validate its own tournament integrity is important.
Yeah.
And this is what happens when it's not. And that kind of sucks. So half of it is like, man, I'm super excited about this really cool software that Lord knows we've just heard nothing about, but for years, promises and promises, it's coming finally. But at what cost? Like what's?
But with it comes sort of opening this floodgate.
Right.
Where...
It's getting kneecapped before it can get out of the gate.
And that really concerns me. All right, so we want to keep moving here. Pascal Maynard noted that he's ending his professional Magic career.
Yep.
I think one of the things I noted here, I believe he's like 25 or 26 years old. Is that correct?
Yeah. Sure.
Just a note, you know, for those who happen to be around that age, I didn't start making the Magic show until I was like 25. Like I didn't, you know, like all the things that he's accomplished are fantastic, are amazing for his age. He's got lots of life ahead of him. He's got plenty of things he can do, plenty of careers he can pursue if he wants to. You know, I just picked up a camera one day in my 20s and just went and did some stuff and kept doing it until they got to pay me for it.
I mean, a lot of people are professional Magic players for a short time in their young adult life and then move on to different careers. Former world champion Julian Nuiten is a world-class chef in the Netherlands, for example.
I didn't know that.
That's great.
There are, I think it was, who's the stand-up comedian? The Norwegian. There's a former professional.
I know who you're talking about. I can't think of the name right now. Somebody, hopefully, the chat will be in there.
Yeah, and like, you know, people move on and people do other stuff. You know, they say nobody ever really quits Magic, but some people do, and they, you know, I hope that Pascal is super brilliant and just a great guy and is gonna do great things moving forward. So nothing but
yeah,
love.
I mean, this seems to be a really honest take on the situation. There's a lot of self-awareness here, a good bit of reflection, but mostly it boils down to, you know, he just talks about he wants to start living his life, and you know, the truth is you have to devote a lot of your life to competitive Magic, and you know, while he doesn't have any regrets, he's like, you know, I would like to have a girlfriend, and I'd like to have, you know, vacations, and I'd like to have nothing to do sometimes. And, you know, I can certainly relate to that the older I get, even just making content creation. You know, you start to wonder, how much time am I spending on this?
I mean, Pascal being known forever for that foil Goyf pick. Goyf Gate was amazing. Pascal Maynard, terrific competitor, absolutely awesome. I hope he does well in the future. We got to keep moving. We got to go to this Desperate Ravings because we can't not talk about what madness went on today. Lordy, it was just a hot brush fire.
And so many layers. Like we talked about this on the pre-show, you know, we were both concerned for very, very different reasons that were still both very valid. And, you know, even when I brought up my opinions on it on Twitter, Emma even, you know, kind of approached me and gave a different angle that I hadn't even considered. And so there were so many ways to look at this thing.
Right. And ultimately, it kind of boiled down to this. Mage Market has offered a payment option through
Klarna.
And Klarna is Klarna is a payment processor through Europe, very, very well known in Europe. It has come to the US since 2015, as I understand it. And it's a way for you to have essentially a payment plan instead of paying all of your stuff up front. This is not that dissimilar from Amazon pushing you an Amazon card when you're checking out, or Best Buy wanting to give you a Best Buy credit card when you're checking out. I understand that part of it. I was very upset at first because at first it felt like this was straight predatory lending. They'll get you into a terrible cycle. They'll have crazy interest rates and so on and so forth. And to their credit, Mage Market has gone back and removed the financing portion of the options for payment. Basically, you can't sort of get that credit card-esque, small payment that could last for years and years or whatever and cost you lots and lots of money. Instead, they have only two different options. And Aaron, we were talking a little bit about this in the pre-show, where you have sort of a set option for paying back in 4 installments, and there was another option as well.
Right. So you can either pay the whole thing off in 30 days, or you, if I understood it correctly, you can, there are many options, but it sounds like what Mage Market is down to is you can either pay the whole thing off in 30 days, or you can agree to 4 installments that come out on a regular basis. You can't change the date on them, but there is no late fee if you are late on those payments. If you're late, it means you simply may not be able to use the service anymore. Right. There's no interest on those either, as long as you make all of your payments that you agree to. So as long as you keep up with your end of the bargain, Klarna is not a bad thing. But what really kind of stood out to Evan in particular was that the concerns seem to only really be with Americans because, in Europe, they have nice things like free healthcare and free college, or they don't have the debt concerns that we do here in America. And so to them, to the European folks, this was just another service that they use and they benefit from. Whereas in America, you have things like payday loan centers, and you have, all sorts of ways. Our student loan system is a mess. And so, we've seen people get burned by things like this before. And so I think that's what really fueled our reactions was, seeing all of this and go, oh, we've been here before.
I mean, first of all, if you live in those other countries, thanks for listening. We appreciate that.
Yes.
And I think it's incredibly telling when you see, as Americans, we're basically one cancer diagnosis or one car crash away from complete financial ruin. And I mean complete financial ruin. And when you try to explain to someone that somebody cannot afford to go to the doctor because they can't afford $100,
they don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have insurance. It's at least $100. That's just to get in the door. Don't even get started about what your prescription drugs that they may prescribe you may cost. It's ridiculous. So with the burden of predatory lending that happens all over the place, where people get caught in cycles because they don't know what they're signing up for, and the fact that people can sort of get offered this play now and pay later type stuff, which can appeal to sort of the gambling mindset. Getting rid of that finance option was a terrific thing to do. Good job. And what is left over, based on what I can tell, is that they will essentially lend you small amounts of money, and if you screw it up, you don't get to get those amounts of money anymore.
It does still have the potential to trap you in a cycle because, so if I'm understanding the Klarna website correctly, the amount that they offer you is based on how many times you've used the service before. So initially you'll start off small, and then you make your 4 installments. And then if you request another one, you will essentially have more to take out. So that could possibly keep you in this cycle of constantly taking out installments and installments to watch your amount get bigger. So there is room for this to be abused. There is room for people to be taken advantage of. There are some ethical concerns in terms of the dealer essentially giving the addict a loan, like casinos giving you chips. That's kind of weird. And so there could be some problems here, but where it's at right now is much better than where it's at before. And kudos to them for listening to that feedback and responding very quickly. I think it was midnight in Europe when the guy had made that video. So he was very quick about this.
Right. They have, I think they've had a few stumbles in trying to communicate exactly what they're trying to say. But, and I also think that they expected this just to be like gangbusters, high five, everyone loves this, which is the biggest response or biggest surprise for them. But ultimately, and the way I see it essentially is that it's not going to hit your credit report anymore. They're not going to ding your credit that way. They do a soft credit check, which doesn't actually sort of ding your report officially. And the way that it kind of works, you're essentially getting an interest-free loan as long as you keep up your end of the bargain. Again, and again, this is very common in Europe, whereas this is very not common in America. Because if it's the common thing in America is to get in this cycle and then never stop paying. Like you just pay forever. Whereas Europeans are like, well, yeah, I'll get my Tundra today and I'll pay $25 a couple times later, and then we're good to go. And so that's definitely, I think, a culture thing where Americans are just like, how are they going to screw us over? How are they going to screw us when we're going to get in this cycle of debt forever? Oh my God, I bought this magic card and I can't stop paying for it. Like, that's not really how it's going to work. And
especially because in America, you have so many payment methods available to you. And so if you're doing this and you live in America, you probably don't have the cash, or you probably don't have a credit card to where, you're already kind of in a bad spot. And so, the target audience for this in America is probably people who are already starting on the back foot. And so this may not be the best option for you if you're in that position.
Right. And again, just to be clear, don't buy magic cards on credit cards, okay? Like, this isn't a good idea. If you're like, you're doing installments because you need like a lawnmower or something, like, okay, these are things that are useful in your everyday life that you can get, some, if you really need like a kitchen set because, you need pots and pans or something, like something useful that actually has tangible value that you can, like, don't buy your groceries on credit cards.
Stable value.
Right. Yeah. And magic cards go up and down in value all the time. And that's just, you're just asking for disaster in the wrong way. So just, be financially sound. Try not to get into any debt if you can avoid it. We have so much drama this week. Goodness gracious. So Thorolf Severin
Love him.
Cool guy, super awesome. Decided in pack 2 when he opened a dream trawler that it was blue-white time, when he literally had picked nothing but red and black cards in pack 1, which was incredible. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. And as it didn't work out, he posts a picture saying no hard feelings with an eye roll emoji of a dream trawler torn into 4 pieces. Goodness gracious, here we go. Esser Unger, who, as I understand it, is a terrific judge and has done nothing but terrific judging, says, PSA, if you do this to a card publicly in an event I'm judging, I will give you a warning for unsporting conduct minor. Destroying cards, even if they are your own, will make people sad. There are other ways to handle frustration. Destroying cards is a very negative one. Now let's note, English, as I understand, is a second language here.
Sure.
There was a lot of the context that was missing, and they posted an article later where they went in depth essentially as to what they were talking about, unsporting conduct, what that means. I've linked that in the chat. It's linked in the show notes, so you guys can go see that, where they go real deep into the fact that it's not just, you're over there in the corner and you could do like a rip and you put it down and then that's it. And you took a little picture or whatever. And but if you went into your opponent and you were just like, rip, just in your face, you see this crap.
Yeah, that's a different story.
There's a whole variety of context and behavior that you have to put into these stories, but on just the surface level, if I'm like over by my lonesome and I'm like, I hate this stupid card, and I like took a picture for Twitter, and then like a judge comes out of nowhere and says I'm giving you an infraction, I will lose my mind. I'm not okay with that scenario. I will just lose my mind. I cannot handle it.
At the time, I thought this was ludicrous. Like, I could not believe the judge did this. And the blog post really does clear it up a little bit. They had intended to kind of use this as a teaching moment. And I think if you are going to do something like that, perhaps you should use like a quote tweet or perhaps a screenshot of the conversation. But when we see you replying to Toffel personally and nobody else is tagged and you are saying, I will do this to you, it was just a really bad look. And it certainly didn't do anything to, there were already people that may have their issue with judges or feel that they might be kind of sanctimonious. And so it just went over like a rock. And even other judges were like, this really wasn't the time or the place, or, it just didn't need to be said. Like, it just could have been handled better. And it seems like they are aware of that now. They certainly didn't deserve the backlash they got. Like, even though it was a poor choice, I don't think they deserve to be like driven off Twitter or anything. But, there are ways to, use your social media and ways to get your point across. And this just wasn't a very good one.
Yeah. So it was a hot kerfluffle there for about 48 hours. It was all we could talk about, and how, then there's feelings, and then all of a sudden there's like, no, don't do that, because then you're going to be like, if you're compassionate, then suddenly you're that's a bad thing. It's like, no,
well, if you're playing Dream Trawler, you ain't here to make friends. I mean, that's the truth.
You're slamming that thing on turn 6. You don't care.
Absolutely.
Who cares? Well, all right, so moving on here real quick, there were some commander changes that Mark Rosewater had just done some random votes on. Let's see what people think about it and stuff like that. Things like, commander dies triggers was a thing where Rosewater had said specifically, it caused us to stop making death triggers on legendary creatures in standard legal sets, because if a legend dies in Brawl or Commander, they don't hit the graveyard, which means they don't go to the graveyard / die, and they don't trigger anything. That
I'm familiar. Yeah.
And first of all, I had no idea. I don't play the format enough to know that nuance. So that was news to me. They say if I make a cool design with a death trigger, they specifically have to make it non-legendary, because otherwise, it won't kind of do what you want it to do. And he noted that things like this are going to be necessary to change, like for example a Soul Ring ban. That's a big deal. Some of these things are going to need to change in order for Commander to continue being designed and developed as a format moving forward. And some of these are kind of silly, and some of these are just like, can you use hybrid mana cards in monocolor decks?
This went over very poorly from the majority of Commander people. And the thing that seems to really upset people is that Morrow apparently has been very vocal about the fact that he does not like Commander. So for him to suddenly chime in on this thing that he's been very, vocal about, people were just like, why? Like, literally nobody asked you. And so the Commander community is very passionate. And so, the fact that Morrow kind of threw his hat in the ring, and on top of that, his suggestions were quite silly. People were just like, go away.
like and again, these are like planeswalkers as commanders. These are the commander dies trigger. This is allowing silver border. This is changing the tuck rule, changing the mulligan rules.
I mean, one thing that I think people constantly forget, and I'm always surprised that this has to keep coming up again, is that ultimately Commander has no rules. Like, as long as you're not playing in like a sanctioned event, you make your own rules. Like when I played in my local pod, when I first started getting into Commander, I played with a local play group here in Milwaukee, and we had what we called the rampant growth rule, where if somebody didn't draw a land or somebody couldn't play a land for 3 turns, we would let you pay 2 life and like go look for a basic or something, because we wanted you to participate in the game. We didn't want you to feel left out or lose due to mana screw. We've also had moments where we've let people use proxies, or we've let people use silver bordered cards. And so, you know, if everybody's fine with it, okay, you can use your hybrid mana if you want to, or you can choose to add a death trigger, or you can choose to use your unstable cards. And so I do, on the one hand, I think that there are some people that are valid in terms of wondering why Mario is getting involved. But at the end of the day, you can still institute these things anytime you want. And I think it's interesting that this always keeps coming around of these Commander players feeling so slighted, when it's like you could have always done these things, you know, like you didn't need us to tell you to do that.
I mean, for example, the poison total change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your life total's double, but the poison total isn't. Like,
yeah.
Isn't that kind of weird?
And if that's something your pod agrees on, if you're all like, man, that's really screwed up, you can bump that up. Like, there are very few occasions that are going to lead to you being in an official like Commander rules environment. So make your own rules, have fun.
Mm-hmm. Really want to touch quickly here on the mystery boosters. Mystery boosters.
I still don't know what they are.
Well, here, mystery boosters is a gigantic set, of like 1,400 to like 1,800 cards. Like it's a lot. All right, and every pack is going to have 2 of each color, along with like uncommons and a rare. So 2 red cards, 2 black cards, 2 white cards, so on and so forth. So when you're drafting, you know there's going to be some cards in your colors, no matter what pack you're trying to open. The card pool is so large, it's basically the ultimate chaos draft. And because it's real cards, they're worth real money. And so there's a lot of money cards in that set, like Bloom Tender and Friends, that you could open and really make out like a bandit. Well, the thing was, at conventions, you know, if you go to Grand Prix, Magic Fest, whatever, you can play mystery boosters, and they have those test cards, you know, those really weirdo test card things. Well, the version coming to stores later next month is going to have foils. Yeah. And we don't know what that foil list is, but thanks to eBay and somebody, I guess, cracked a few packs, we knew a few of them. Samaru, Hound of Konda, was one that had been spoiled. And I'm trying to think of the other one, because the post has been taken down. Big shocker. But it was basically spoiling foils from the mystery booster list that we had no idea was in there, because right now mystery boosters are just flying off the shelves. As far as I know, there has not been a single Magic Fest that has not sold out of the mystery boosters it was allotted. Like every single one, lines like back quickly out the door. Yes, really soon. And they're worth tons of money on the secondary market, and you can buy booster boxes right now for $110 on CoolStuffInc.com. And I'm telling you, if this foil list is insane, that number is going to go higher, because you give me, you know, $100 foil, or some bunch of $50 foils in this list. Note, they said there's going to be no foils that have not been foiled before, so there's not going to be like a foil oubliette or anything coming. But they are going to choose it, you know, from a sort of a fun list, and they're going to announce this list in some fashion before the product is out. I hope, like, I would think so, because right now there's already a wave of hype, because, you know, Aaron, they've actually posted the entire list of cards that are in this ginormous set. So, and the weird thing about this set is that every card is just as rare as every other card. There's no mythics, there's no rares, there's no uncommons. Everything is as rare as everything else, and that's a really weird pack of Magic cards. But if there's 121 foils, which there's going to be 121 different foils that can be in these packs. If those are worth good money, it's just going to explode all over again. So mystery boosters are coming. It's really interesting to see those foils coming out. I believe Reaper King was another one I recall seeing on eBay from the mystery boosters. So this is, you know, serious good foils already being shown, and we don't even know what the rest maybe or might be. Moving on here. Command Fests. Where the hell are they? Wizards?
Good question.
Wizards, what are you doing?
Gavin replied with like some goofy winking face. So I'm just like,
come on now, don't be goofy winking me. We need to know, man. This is like, come on. It's almost March. What are we doing?
I mean, they were a success.
They were a huge success.
When did they occur last year?
late last year, but with the idea that they were like piloting them. I recall they were like a September to November-ish type time frame.
So I think the Chicago one and the Seattle, so the Chicago one and the Seattle one happened concurrently, I believe. And then a couple weeks later was the one in DC, and I was in Chicago and DC.
Right, and Chicago's, again, like, because, hey, there was competition, there was twice as much EV to show up to that one, and there was even more EV to show up to the DC one. So, you know, these were great. Everyone loved them. It promoted competition. It got people butts and seats. Those things sold out.
Well, it's especially awkward because we're coming up on Ikoria, and Ikoria was really hammered home as being, like, the commander. We're getting those commander decks with it, right?
Right, we're getting the official, like, 2020 commander decks. The 5 decks are coming with Ikoria.
Why not link them up?
What are we, Wizards? Hello? I know it's not Arena, okay? I know it's not Arena.
They're like, what?
And they're like, it's a 0. Is it a 0 or a 1? No, I don't care. Because this is the type of stuff that says you don't care, that you have not gone in front of
I got
us.
it. They have the people from Magic Online planning the Command Fest.
Oh God, we're all dead.
You're welcome.
All right.
Cheapers.
All right.
They have the people from Portal Command.
That was good. That was good.
I can't.
The people from the story team are planning Command Fest.
Right. People from Forsaken. They're
rough.
decidedly happening.
It's
the thing.
It's rough out there. Well, also, one thing I want to note here, the Wizards announced that they are punishing people actively for roping during Arena.
Aaron, please.
Aaron, please.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. Roping, if you don't know, is not what Aaron is giggling about, but is instead when you try to time out your opponent on purpose on Arena to troll the living crap out of them. And note, they said they are looking for very distinct patterns of play. If you tanked that one time and then like went to use the bathroom another time and accidentally roped your opponent, is not a big deal. These are people who consistently mess with their opponents and time them out in a terrible way, and that sucks. And I'm super glad to hear that Wizards is doing literally anything about this behavior, because it's difficult at times for them to do stuff about behavior.
We may need to go back to phrasing though, because Aaron can't talk about this issue.
Aaron, it's not ropers,
roping,
big roping,
rope. and it's called roping because of Hearthstone, where there is a literal fuse that is burning across the middle of your play screen.
Right.
In Magic Arena, there is no fuse. I'm not going to use that other word just so that Aaron doesn't have
a magical fuse
to laugh at it.
But I'm fine. I am so fine.
But yeah, so that's where that term comes from.
Right. This is called abusing the timer system. If it makes you feel better, they're abusing the timer system. But
is there actually a fuse on Magic Online? I'm stupid.
Well, no, it's a hourglass, and
it's an hourglass. It's a timer.
It does burn down though.
Does it?
Yeah.
It looks like it burns down. It just kind of glows or whatever. The point is, they're doing something about it. Thank God. That's awesome. There's a guy named Will Jonathan.
You can't. We got to talk about Magic Online. Oh no, you can't skip that.
Oh, you want to talk about the Magic Online's
yes.
program?
Oh my God, it was a disaster.
Oh, please do. Go.
So this past weekend, there was a Legacy Challenge on Sunday, and Magic Online got stuck on round 4 and stayed that way for over 3 hours.
With no communication?
No communication. There wasn't a tweet. There wasn't anything. They weren't responding to the web forms. And there were all sorts of screenshots, and there were all sorts of tweets from people that were like, am I supposed to drop? Like, I'm doing kind of good here. Or people that were like, I'm already out, but I kind of want to see where this goes. And so it went on. It felt like an eternity. And then finally, the Magic Online account came back on, and then they apologized for what happened. And then they said that they were going to, all players who started round 5, as well as all players who dropped from the event with 6+ match points, will have their entry returned to them without needing to contact customer service. So you also had to be doing well enough in order for them to refund you. So some people will play these out, no matter how well they're doing. They want the practice, or they want to see if maybe they can break even, or if they can make a comeback. And if you didn't have at least that many points, you got nothing for your trouble. And so this was just bad. And especially, coming off of that conference call where they said that, there'd been a decline in Magic Online. and then you're literally seeing like a decline in service. It was just like, how could you let this happen?
Right. They fired essentially all of the people that were helping to run and maintain Magic Online. Or at least fired those who were working in the US, and they sort of outsourced it to whomever. And this is kind of what you get here. For example, John Ryan Hamilton had tweeted at 4:40 p.m. saying that, he loves to see the Legacy Challenge stuck in round 4 for 3 hours and no one on Magic Online team to help, or at least come out and say, hey, it's broken and we're comping everyone. Wizards Magic Online did reply at 6:14. That's almost 2 hours, 1.5 hours later, we apologize for the issue that caused a delay, and so on and so forth. So it's not quite self-sabotaging. It's just like you kind of set it up. When you set things up to kind of fail, when you set things up with sort of bad feedback loops or bad customer service, and bad community management, when you're not telling people what's going on, you're like, these are the things that will. This is the way Magic Online declines. And for what it's worth, I think Wizards is 100% ready to get rid of Magic Online as soon as possible. It's a giant weight around their neck. They've done nothing, but they hate the redemption system. Like they had to spend a whole bunch of money on the support team that they're still spending money on, but they're spending, I'm guessing, lots less money on. And as a result, we're getting worse service. And then as a result, the service, the game itself essentially kind of keeps declining, because you can cube and you can draft against humans, but once Arena gets human drafting, that's just another notch on the post of just like, well, how many days has it got left?
Once they get Pioneer, that's going to be a big thing. It didn't help that this was a Legacy event, and so of course the conspiracy theories came out of like, oh, Wizards just trying to kill Legacy, and I was like, I don't think it's that deep, but it certainly didn't help matters any when it's a format that they've already kind of pulled support for, and now who cares if your challenge shops?
Right, and for what it's worth, and I think someone mentioned it in the chat here, we don't need like giant updates with exactly what went wrong. You can just be like, we know it's busted, we're working on it, we're sorry. Send tweet. That's it. That's all you got to do. Just let people know that you're aware.
It was just unacceptable.
Right. Yeah. That's just a giant failure, and I would expect Wizards to do better. Yep. Speaking of giant failures,
I'm right here. Unbelievable.
Some people.
But you're our failure.
That's right.
Thanks.
Yes. You're our favorite failure.
I'll take what I can get.
Will Jonathan is someone who worked briefly as a sports psychologist for my team, says Abe Corrigan. Being naturally skeptical, my friend and I researched his qualifications on suspicions we had about his legitimacy. We failed to find any evidence to confirm the degrees and the psychology, and he goes deep.
Yeah, so Will has been writing articles for a while, mostly on channelfireball.com, and he discusses things like tilt and how to stay positive during events, and he interviews various people about sort of their tactics. He had an ebook, I think, at one point that various pros had endorsed, but evidently none of that's real, and so he listed all of these certifications that he had, all of these all of this experience that he had. And when some of these people from this team went to look it up, they could find nothing. And so this young man compiled a Google document of all of the research that he did. There's some screenshots of DM conversations where Will proceeds to list his resume, and then none of it checks out. There was a social media account that appears to belong to him that uses a different name, where he's listed as being a marketer, which kind of makes you think this might be just some sort of marketing experiment. But it's a little concerning. This is something that you don't want to be giving advice for if you are not actually a psychologist, or you are not actually a psychiatrist, or sort of like when you hear people say, I'm not a lawyer or I'm not a doctor. This is very sensitive stuff to be helping people with. And so this opened up a much larger discussion. We have a lot of mental health professionals in the community, and they felt very offended that this person was, kind of making this career and having no background and being very careless and very dangerous.
Pharmacist Judge is, in fact, a pharmacist.
He is.
And a judge.
He's got the coat. I mean,
I am neither a Mox nor a Ruby. No, I'm a Ruby, actually.
A little Ruby.
I'm not a Mox.
A name like Will Jonathan is fairly obvious as almost a stage name when you think about it. Like, a lot of people with the last name Jonathan. You do you?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, yeah, all right.
Jonathan's the last name.
I mean, it's very standard. No, I'm not going to make that joke. I'm not Not going to do that.
Oh boy. Well, all I know is, to me, this is one of those things like hindsight. You know what I mean? I think when you look back and you go, wow, that seems like a sort of a made up name, as it were. And if you're looking for a stage name to replace Will Macardle or whatever, and you don't want people, and you don't
just do what Childish Gambino did and go to the Wu-Tang Clan name generator.
That's right.
And find yourself a randomized name.
Mm-hmm.
Do that.
Really happen. So, and I was literally, as I recall, I was watching the review of some Magic books that the professor had done, and Will's was one of those books, and he gave it a pretty good grade, as I recall.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just, and this like just popped up today. This was just a few hours ago.
Yeah.
It came out
I mean,
of
it
nowhere.
happens. Like, this is, I don't know how big of a deal this is. Like, how big of a deal is this? Honestly.
Well, I mean, it's
like
fraud.
if you're claiming to be a professional doctor, that's obviously a big deal. But is this criminal? Is my question.
No, I just think it's unethical, essentially.
Yeah.
Oh, it's certainly unethical.
Right.
This
It's
person's
unethical, it's
horrible
immoral,
and should be fired.
but
they could probably have written the same articles
Mhm.
and just said, "Now I'm not a doctor,"
right.
but they didn't.
Right.
Like that's the
Right.
Yeah, the fact that he's listing this resume, like,
Yeah,
he's, like
that's
you
the
can see
problem.
the DM screenshot of him saying, "I went to this school, I graduated here, I did this."
Obviously,
and then
that's
when
horrendous.
people cross-reference it and none of it happened, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, and it's a big deal in terms of it's just trust. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
what you earn and lose in a community is trust. And
It's trust.
Right.
It's dangerous because you don't know what you're talking. You quite literally don't know what you're talking about, and
Right.
there's stakes on the line. Like it's one thing if you've never played a deck before and you write an article about it because no one's really getting hurt in that exchange. But when people are, when you're dealing with people's minds and people's, behaviors, you're quite literally toying with people.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
You're just it'd be like somebody giving diet advice or somebody. If you're not a dietitian, I'm not going to tell you what to eat. I'm not going to tell you how to lift weights. I don't go to the gym. It's just it's quite reckless.
Right.
Yeah, there's certain things that you can like sort of speak confidently about. I feel like, and you don't just sort of like make up credentials and then try to go sell yourself on those credentials and then try to go sell a book that you write based on things that you're not specifically trained in how to do. I get that a degree is just a piece of paper, but it also means you went through certain hoops that have been established so that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's awkward. So so that's taking a bridge and setting it on fire. So that's fun. Sure. Why not? All right, let's move on here. Turning a corner to the finisher. Last weekend, Paulo Vitor Dama de Rosa completed his trifecta of trophies. Now the 2020 Magic World Champion, PV added that achievement to his shelf alongside his 2 Pro Tour championships from 2010 and 2017 and his 2 Nationals titles from 2006 and 2009. This is once again brought up the discussion of who the greatest of all time is. Kai, John, Luis, Nassif, or Paulo? So tell me, who is your all-time MTG GOAT? Aaron?
Well, I got to give it to my buddy Kai Buddha. 7 wins, 5 individual. No other player has won more than 3. A world championship and a Magic Invitational championship. 4-time player of the year. And most importantly, for my purposes, he's great to hang out with. So they may call him the German Juggernaut, but I call him the German Huggernaut.
Oh,
right there.
and Kai's great. Another guy I got to hang out with quite a bit.
Really, so much fun. I did one of my favorite interviews on the Deck Tees. I met him at GP Madison a few years ago. Just amazing personality and great dude. Great calves too. Just
wow,
calves.
straight.
Important in your MTG GOAT is to have good calves.
Absolutely, you can't be a goat with like little bird legs.
It's important. Yeah. Ruben,
got to fill the farm yard out, goats and calves. That's some 4-H humor for you. All
wow.
Right. I'll argue. I'll argue in favor of the new hotness. I'm gonna move my computer by accident because I got gesticulating. Am I centered? I'll argue in favor of the new hotness. PVDDR. Not only is he the newest champion, he's been in the argument for the title of the best player in the game for the last decade, and he continues it into the heyday of Magic the Gathering. He's done it all, by the way, with a huge handicap. He's from Brazil. So imagine that if instead of Paulo de Rosa, he was Paul Rose, and he wasn't traveling 3,000 miles to the nearest Pro Tour.
Yeah,
Right.
he's so long to go, and also I've heard like the income is less than it is here. Like so many obstacles.
Yeah, I mean, like it's a gigantic country. People don't recognize how.
Yep, they get like one event a year, maybe. And
Yeah,
it's like in
like-
the middle of the country.
Think of how far he had to go, how well he had to do with the few events he got to work, to play in to get where he got. Absolutely
Brutal.
incredible.
Yeah.
But listen, I hear you, but you gotta be kidding yourself. When you say the best Magic player of all time, you think of one person, the Machine, the Shadow Mage, Johnny Magic, and the Card Shark Kids fame. You think of John Finkel. Most PT top 8s, 3 wins, highest percentage of votes for any Hall of Famer, and of course, most importantly, he's got the best conversion rate of OkCupid dates to viral Gizmodo articles of all time, otherwise known as the OK Goat.
Oh my god.
That's right.
That's true. That's the OK Goat percentage is higher.
Oh.
Very,
John.
very high. But that ends another live episode of Magic Mics. Thanks for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to our amazing listeners for being so understanding as we took last week to deal with some things.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you.
Stop. No, you stop that.
I'm gonna try that when we get done recording. I'm just gonna be like,
Oh my goodness. Move on here to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler, you guys for watching or
I
listening.
heard that.
It was a mess up. And we hope you support us.
What happened?
My
What
ho-hosts.
did I miss?
I call them a ho-hosts.
I missed it.
You also ho-hosts.
I'm a ho-host.
How dare you?
Ho-host. We hope you support us on Patreon.
Oh, hey, by the way, I'm going to interrupt real quick. If anybody has somebody that we should host,
Now it's time.
speaking of co-hosts,
Ho-host.
paste it in the doobly-doo.
Please follow, like, tweet, share, subscribe to everything social tells people we exist. Catch us online on our Discord, twitch.tv at Magic Mics, on Twitter at Magic Mics Cast, our Magic Mics subreddit, and like the Magic Mics page on Facebook. Talk to us privately at magicmicspodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at magicmicspodcast.libsyn.com. Or find us on iTunes or join us here next week. Same time, same place for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.